If you've stayed long enough in a relationship, a job, or a life simply because it feels familiar, then at some point you stop staying because you loved it. Taurus understands this sentence more deeply than most and resists it more than anyone else. Because Taurus doesn't leave when things become difficult. Taurus leaves when there is nothing left inside them to hold on with. Before you keep listening, do one thing. Don't treat this as background noise. Don't let it play while you scroll or clean or think about something else. Stay with it because this isn't about change. It's about the quiet cost of staying the same. Taurus is not afraid of effort. They are not afraid of commitment. They are not afraid of responsibility, patience, or time. What Taurus is afraid of is loss, not dramatic loss, not heartbreak that shatters everything at once, but the kind of loss that forces them to start over. From nothing, with no guarantees, with no familiar ground beneath their feet, and because of that fear, Taurus often does something that looks like strength on the outside, feels like maturity on the inside, and gets praised by everyone watching while slowly hollowing them out. They stay in situations that no longer grow them. They stay in relationships that no longer meet them. They stay in routines that once felt safe, but now feel heavy. Not because they don't see the cracks, Taurus always sees the cracks, but because once Taurus invests, once they build, once they attach their energy, their loyalty, their time, walking away doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like erasing proof that all of that effort meant something. From early in life, Taurus learns that stability is survival, that consistency equals safety, that holding on is virtuous, that endurance is admirable. So when discomfort appears, Taurus doesn't interpret it as a warning. They interpret it as a phase, something to push through, something to outlast. If something feels wrong, Taurus doesn't immediately ask whether it's no longer right for them. They ask how much longer they can manage it, how much more patience they can summon, how much more of themselves they can compress to keep everything intact. This is where the pattern begins. What starts as resilience slowly becomes self-denial. What starts as loyalty slowly turns into emotional inertia. Taurus tells themselves they're being strong, but strength quietly shifts into numbness. They tell themselves they're being mature, but maturity starts to look a lot like silence. And the most dangerous part is that nothing collapses right away. Life continues. The structure remains. From the outside, everything looks stable. Taurus is praised for being dependable, grounded, unwavering. People rely on them. Systems lean on them. Relationships feel secure because Taurus doesn't rock the boat. But internally, something starts to dull. Taurus feels less excitement, less curiosity, less aliveness, and they don't immediately panic because nothing is technically wrong. There is no obvious betrayal, no dramatic failure, no clear reason to leave, so they stay longer. Others feel this, even if they don't consciously realize it. They sense that Taurus won't go anywhere, that Taurus will endure, that Taurus will hold the line. And without malice, without intention, effort becomes uneven. What once was mutual becomes assumed. What once was chosen becomes expected. And Taurus slowly becomes valued not for who they are, but for how much they can be counted on not to leave. The regret doesn't arrive during chaos. It doesn't show up in the middle of a fight or a breakdown. It arrives quietly, often in moments of stillness, when Taurus realizes they are no longer growing, only maintaining. They don't feel deeply desired. They feel preserved. They don't feel inspired. They feel settled. They don't feel alive. They feel secure. And that's when the truth begins to surface. Taurus wasn't staying because the situation was still right. They were staying because they were afraid of what letting go would take away, not just externally, but internally. Letting go would mean admitting that effort doesn't guarantee fulfillment, that time invested doesn't always mean time well spent, that stability can exist without satisfaction. The most painful realization comes slowly, but once it lands, it's impossible to unsee. Taurus wasn't protecting love. They were protecting familiarity. They weren't honoring commitment. They were avoiding uncertainty. They had confused safety with happiness. This is especially difficult for Taurus because their identity is deeply tied to what they build and keep. Their sense of self is anchored in continuity, in having something solid to stand on. Walking away doesn't just threaten a relationship or a job, it threatens who they believe they are. If I leave, who am I without this? If I let go, was everything I invested wasted? If I change, do I lose the version of myself that knows how to survive? These questions cut deeper than fear. They touch something existential. Taurus has learned to measure worth through durability, through staying power, through not quitting. Letting go feels like failure, even when staying is slowly erasing them. But here is where the shift begins. Taurus eventually learns something that contradicts everything they were taught. Not everything stable is healthy. Not everything familiar is nourishing. Some things don't fall apart, they stagnate. They remain intact while quietly draining the life out of the people inside them. Some situations don't need more patience. They need distance. Some relationships don't need time. They need honesty. And some chapters don't need to be fixed. They need to be closed. Taurus does not need to become reckless or impulsive. They don't need to abandon their nature. What they need is permission to leave without justifying it with catastrophe. Permission to choose aliveness over predictability. Permission to walk away even when nothing is wrong, except the way they feel inside. The real mistake was never staying too long out of love. The real mistake was staying out of fear of starting over. Taurus will never regret caring. They will never regret building. They will never regret giving something their full devotion. But they will regret the years spent convincing themselves that comfort was enough, while their spirit slowly went quiet. The moment Taurus allows themselves to leave, not because everything collapsed, but because something inside them stopped growing, that is the moment they reclaim themselves. Stability should support life, not replace it. Safety should be a foundation, not a cage. And when Taurus finally understands that, they don't lose everything by letting go. They lose only what was no longer alive, and for the first time in a long time, they remember what it feels like to be.